I am something of a information junkie. I listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of articles and books and listen to books on audio, all kinds of different things. Some of the things that I engage with are theologically oriented. Some are focused on philosophy. A lot are from theists, but much is from people who are non-religious, atheists. I listen to those that are from the same political views that I may have and others that are extremely far from my political views. I like to get information from a lot of different sources, whether I'm reading that information or watching it on YouTube or listening to it at double speed on a podcast or an audiobook. So I am an extreme information junkie. And in gleaning information from many different sources, I have some thoughts. Get your coffee. I've had the privilege of working as a pastor for nearly 21 years. And when I began as a pastoral intern in 1999, I really could have never imagined the life I've been able to experience thus far. But during my time working in this capacity, it has been fascinating to watch the shift that is taking place in our culture. Obviously, I began doing this work before the terrorist attacks of 2001. Clearly, those attacks were done in the name of religion, and they were acted out by individuals that believed they were doing it on behalf of God, Allah. In another 50 years, the terrorist attacks of 9/11, 2001 will be seen as a significant turning point in Western culture. They've already brought about massive turning points in so many different areas, but we'll look back on them as a significant turning point as it relates to religion, or the view of religion by many in Western culture. I'm thoroughly convinced that one of the outcomes of 9/11 was an elevated distrust of religion. And in response to that distrust, there has been a rejection of any religiosity that is perceived to be fundamentalist. In the wake of 9/11, antagonistic voices against religion, and not only against the religion practiced by those that were engaged in the attacks, but effectively against any monotheistic religion specifically, antagonistic voices against religion became louder. If you've ever read the likes of the late Christopher Hitchens or of Sam Harris, both outspoken atheists, then you know that 9/11 was for them a trigger. And it was a trigger not only for them. I've heard other outspoken atheists like Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, Matthew Delahanty, Michael Shermer, and others reference 9/11 as being a turning point in their evangelism against religion and for naturalistic atheism. For the naturalistic atheist, like those I've mentioned previously, science and reason are king. And for them, religious individuals, be they Jewish, Muslim, or Christian of basically any type, these religious individuals are to them rejectors of science and rejectors of reason. For them, Christians are unreasonable science deniers. We're hearing a lot of such things right now. But for the individual, like myself, who would be categorized by this group as fundamentalists, I'm fascinated by this perception that they have. I am not a rejecter of science. I'm not a rejecter of reason. I am not a science denier. I have always sought to be logical and to lean upon my ability to reason in my life. And like many of the Christians I interact with, I'm very analytical, and I much appreciate the advances we've experienced as a result of scientific methodologies, which were in many cases developed by believers in God. Just go read the history books. Many Christians were involved in the developments of science. This worldview held by the non-religious, and I use that term non-religious rather lightly, but this worldview held by the non-religious materialistic naturalists, is a religious worldview. The high priests of this religious worldview are the individuals I mentioned: Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, Matthew Delahanty, Michael Shermer. The list grows longer and longer every year. And since Christopher Hitchens died, I think he's been canonized as a saint of naturalistic materialism. Most of these individuals would classify themselves as humanists. This makes sense insofar as, for them, human reason is effectively deified. But of recent, in the wake of the ongoing COVID crisis in the West, and in the wake of the turbulence of the 2020 election season in the United States, I believe we are watching a clarifying of what this new religious faith is from these people. It isn't entirely humanism. It might be a new denomination of the rather old humanistic ideologies. What we're seeing is a further materializing of Scientism. What is Scientism? In many ways, it is a form of religious faith in and an adherence to the power of scientific knowledge and practices. Now, again, I think that the scientific method and what it has meant for society is phenomenal. It truly is amazing what has happened in the world over the last 120 years as a result of the implementation of scientific reasoning. The advancements and power of the scientific method over the last 200 years is nothing short of magical and even miraculous. Think about it. It was less than 150 years ago that Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison were producing their amazing inventions. We went from virtually no technology to landing rockets on drone ships in less than 150 years. It is hard to imagine what things will be like 50 years from now, according to all of the scientific and medical and technological advancements that we're watching happen right now. But as I said, we're seeing something different in the further materializing of this new religious scientism. What we have today is not just a commitment to the scientific method. I know many theists that are committed to the same. Rather, what we are witnessing is a religious faith and devotion to the idea that science is the end-all be-all of virtually all things. It is the view that science, as a thing and not a process, is salvation. And this becomes clear when you begin to realize that many of those that commit themselves to scientism, they reject reasonable findings by others, often in their same fields, those that come to alternate conclusions using the same process of scientific reasoning. Or this scientism is seen when the disciples of scientism respond with religiously fundamentalist anger when their views are questioned by other scientists in their fields. They're more than ready to call down the fire of social media cancel culture from a Twitter mob when their strongly held beliefs are challenged. Unreasonably rejecting the findings of others who are often using the scientific method when their findings don't accord with your strongly held beliefs according to your truth is what we might call presuppositional scientism, which isn't really science. Okay, you may ask, but what's your point in all of this, Pastor? Well, two things. One, for the non-religious disciples of scientism, and another for the Christian. To the scientism disciples, it is high time that you acknowledge that you are just as fundamentally religious as most monotheists. We're actually not as different as you might think that we are, except I will acknowledge my bias toward a belief in God. And I don't believe that my belief in God negates my acceptance of science or reason, far from it. And then to the Christian, understand that when you are talking with someone in your family, at work, or in your neighborhood, on the school campus, when you're talking with someone that is, quote, not religious, they're actually religiously not religious. That is their religion. They are as religiously committed to their non-faith as you are to your faith. They just may not have accepted that a new religion has replaced their old religion, and most of those people who are now non-religious came from very religious backgrounds. Something to think about. Maybe we'll get back to Revelation tomorrow. We'll see you next time.